Okay, and DJ is gone. Is everyone except DJ still here? Or am I the only one that messes things up? I think TJ clicked on the wrong button.
Well, I'm still here. Johan.
Yeah, so apparently, according to Andy, I'm going to give the talk today because DJ is gone. JD, no idea where he is gone.
Yes, all right.
I think he clicked on the wrong button. Let's hope that he will come back soon.
Yes. Okay, Johan, maybe we can just catch up while everyone is away at the moment. What do you think?
About what? Where do I have to think about?
I don't know. I really don't know. I honestly don't know.
There is JD coming back. Welcome, JD. The red button with leave is not the one that you should use, JD. That's the wrong button. You are muted. You are muted, JD. So we gladly don't hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've had a few bloopers today, so let me continue with this presentation. So I'll share my screen now. Thanks for your patience. I don't think this has happened before. So cool. Great. So today we're discussing making churches more EA. I'll discuss what I mean by that. First, by EA, I mean two things really. First, I mean this idea of maximizing the good you can do through your career, through your projects, and your donations. And second, I mean this community or this movement that's built around this idea. And there are thousands of people involved all around the world, people who are trying to maximize the good they can do with their donations, maximize the social good they can do through their careers, and also through their projects. And many Christians have gotten involved in the movement as well. So for us, we think about this in context of our Christian calling. It also often in terms of advancing the kingdom of God and serving the poor, and not just doing that in an everyday kind of way, but doing it with extreme intentionality and doing it in the most effective ways we know how. So what then would it mean to bring EA to churches? I want to discuss that here, and I'll just maybe clarify a little bit this discussion before we discuss it further in a small group. But I think what it would mean to bring EA to churches is a couple of things. First, it would mean a greater emphasis on biblical concepts that relate to effective help. Concepts like impartiality, treating others as equal regardless of their race or their gender or their place in the world, even like geographically speaking, where they're located. I read The Good Samaritan in a Bible study with some friends recently, and we looked at how the Samaritan who helped the fallen Israelite was helping someone who's not in their let's just say their normal circle of concern. In the same way, we can reflect that kind of love towards others who normally aren't in our circle of concern and be a good neighbor towards them. I think that's one way that we can see a theme that relates to EA, but a theme that's at its core a biblical theme, the theme of impartiality, which relates back to the love of God himself, who impartially loved all of us and gave his life through Jesus Christ for us. So there's lots of other biblical themes, I think, that relate to EA, themes like radical generosity. I mean, the fact that Jesus gave everything, both his life, but also you see him and his disciples were very generous with their money. In the early church, people lived with their things in common, and we see calls to give quite radically to the poor. Jesus tells in the in the story with the rich young ruler, he tells the rich young ruler to sell all of his possessions and give to the poor. We see throughout the New Testament this imperative to give to those in need, as well as things, really condemnations from prophets throughout the entire Old Testament, warning Israel that it has gone astray because it's forgotten the needs of the poor. So I think, yeah, we could emphasize more biblical concepts that relate to EA. We can talk more about what those would be. Another thing it would mean is maybe just making more Christians who are in EA involved in church, and vice versa. Maybe bringing more of our fellow Christians at church more involved in EA, inviting them to conferences, inviting them to a call like this. That would be another example of what that would mean. I think it would also mean getting our churches to give more to effective charities. And by that, I don't mean giving strictly to, say, give all charities, although that would be great. And some of us have tried to do that. I know Mike has succeeded in encouraging his local Presbyterian church to give directly, and that seems like a very impactful thing to do. But also, whatever it is that our local churches are committed to caring about, helping them give more effectively, and seems like a step in the right direction. But also maybe career discernment involving social impact. If churches were more proactively engaged in nudging and encouraging their members, especially their young members who are considering career paths, to pursue the most impactful career paths from a social impact and kingdom impact perspective, that would be a really valuable thing. And that seems like something I've never heard of churches doing this. I had a very active youth group growing up. I don't think there was any active steering or nudging with regards to career whatsoever. And I think that's really a lost opportunity for churches that want to raise up a next generation of Christian leaders. So that's something I think that EA focuses on, and something we could bring to our churches. Some ideas of how Christian effective altruists can maybe influence their churches. I think maybe the best way is really to share our stories. One thing I've learned recently is that, I guess I've talked to a lot of Christians about effective altruism. I think it's a really important biblical message to care about, not just helping, but helping effectively. I think it's an important part of discipleship. But instead of just saying that I think it's important, usually what's so much more effective is just sharing my story and just how I felt convicted throughout my life from being really haphazard and really reckless about how I help people. And oftentimes we have opportunities to share in our churches, whether that's in our Bible studies or in Sunday school or whatsoever. People give us opportunities to share how God has worked in our lives and what God is calling us towards and how we feel God is moving in us today. And I think when we're given these opportunities, yes, we should absolutely share the way that Jesus has transformed us and shaped us. I think a part of that for many of us also has involved a conviction to help others as best we can, using EA as a tool to do that. So I think we can share our story. I think when we think about whom we're sharing with, maybe there's a couple ways we could go about this, right? One way we could go about this is focusing on individuals, our individual friends, in other members who are in our social circles in church. If you go to a small church like the one I went to when I was in Michigan, there are not that many individuals to address. I think there were like 15 people who showed up every week at my church. So it's pretty easy to mention to the whole church in one coffee hour about EA. But you have big churches, and maybe in a big church, it's really hard to reach the pastors or the giving committees. It's much easier to address individuals within that church. But if possible, you might want to address the giving committee. I mentioned Mike earlier. He succeeded in encouraging his Presbyterian church to give directly. He said it took a lot of work. He put many hours into serving the church, and also into educating them about effective ways to alleviate poverty, until they finally invested some in Give Directly for their yearly giving campaign. But that was a multi-year process, and he can tell you more about that. Others I know in our community have tried to do similar things, but with no avail, and have actually had regrettably difficult experiences with their churches, who are just really committed to giving in a very specific way and just aren't open to input. So yeah, another way is maybe to talk to your pastor or church leaders, and maybe through these specific relationships, maybe you can have some kind of influence. But yeah, I want to talk about all these things. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think it would mean to make churches more EA? What do you think are the most relevant ways to do this? Also, what do you think are the most effective and tractable ways to do this? Maybe there's versions that are like, very highly likely to succeed, but overall not very ambitious and don't scale super well. But maybe there's some really opportunistic ways to influence key strategic stakeholders, but have maybe a low probability of success. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and also if you have any experiences talking about effective giving and effective careers at your church or other EA concepts, how that's gone for you.